I'm going to give Crusoe's Planet a try. Now, what I'm going to play is really just one of the introductory scenarios, I think. I'm interested in the advanced rules, but I don't feel like I can really do them until I take a shot at one of the others. And I also have the feeling that this game is just not going to be very interesting solitaire. I think what it's going to probably play out best as is almost a classroom type game where you're looking at a specific model, where you decide to take one and investigate it using the game, as it were. So I'm going to just do the simple tribal capitalism where people are allowed to trade what they like, work on what they want. I've dealt out the cards in initial order. I'm only going to play 4 players. One reason for that is so that I can have a corresponding colored pip. Some of the colors are a little hard for me to distinguish, actually. This one and this one are, but I should be able to manage. I may swap that out for the green one just to make it a little easier. Obviously, I could use different pawns or, and use dice to mark who's who. But I think 4 players should be complex enough to give me a little bit of modeling here. I know my wife's interested in trying this. So, at the beginning, in the beginning, we have to decide which path in turn that we're going to take. This is tough, right? The sand crab looks very rich in producing a lot of different stuff. So yellow is going to take the sand crab path. Our next choice here is this black and brown. Does he want to follow that same path, that rich path? Well, there are other rich paths, like the firefly. That looks kind of exciting. I want to kind of space things out. Now, there's a problem with some of these paths, which is that, well, there are some radios available on this one and this one. That was my worry, is that we won't get any radios. Bookworm produces a lot of spears. Spears could be valuable. There's rich production of spear fishing early on in the ant path. Dung beetle looks kind of crappy, to tell you the truth. Spider looks kind of rich. And some of these others, well, this is definitely producing good water. Trying to decide what to go with. Green's going to go on spider. And now the real question is, do I want to take a 4th path, or do I want to double up on a path and thereby reduce the value of that path overall? For this first time through, first cycle, I'm going to jump in on a single path. Now, this is the bookworm, which produces all these neat spears, which I don't know how valuable they really are. Oh, there's a lot of spear fishing down here and up here. A lot of that production on fish is actually spear fishing. Yeah, I'm going to go with the bookworm with the intention of perhaps being able to build some spears. And now it just becomes this simple little roll and move game for a little while. Yellow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, he's got some choices. He could take a bunch of leisure. That's kind of useless. A couple tomatoes, and with that he'd get a banana. Bunch of water, a radio. I'm going to take the 3 water. Water's a necessity. I want to make sure we have it. If other people don't have it, that becomes a problem. Now, does water... Let me get... Maybe this tells me. Water does not expire. So stockpiling it won't be bad. So that's how I look at that. Okay. And now we go to black here. Okay. Now he has choices between a banana or 2 radios. He's going to grab 2 radio pieces. Maybe people will give him something for having done this altruistic task. At least help him survive. Who knows? Over to green up here on the spider. He can take a gem or 2 flowers. Well, again, flowers are worth definite victory points, but I'm going to take the gem as a long-term value. And then we go to orange, who has a choice between a couple of fruit, so he'll take a banana and a tomato. I don't think there's a lot of interest in watching this roll and move going on. So I'm going to cut away from this. I just don't think that there's much to be seen about it. And probably come back when somebody gets to market, or when everybody gets to market, and discuss more there. Just as a quick summation, because we've gone around a couple of times. Yellow's got a collection of some food and water. His basic survival is easily met, and he's got some trading opportunity to maybe get food that he may want elsewhere. For example, the eggs that he's collected. Or maybe even a diamond, which is of some worth. Or, particularly interesting, this guy's got a couple of spears in his hand. Now this guy has hit the market. He could have taken some leisure instead of the spears, but the spears seem to help everybody's chances of survival better. They also give him a military option, which is of some interest. But remember, you start killing people off, you're reducing your chances of survival. With 4 players in the game, you're not talking about an overburdened production chart. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not until you have 8 people that you're beginning to overburden pathways by any chance. This guy has collected up a lot of music. Now, that's kind of a risky move, which is to say, other people have to kind of support his creation of the music for him to survive. If he doesn't get some water or something, bananas aren't very valuable. Everybody's got bananas except this guy. But maybe other people can agree that, hey, you've done a good job in securing some things for the populace as a whole, and if you get some experience on that route, we'd like you to take it again, because there's also the military channel there, and this other one, I don't know what that's meant to be. One's commercial, one's citizen, and one's top 40. I don't know which is which. It really doesn't matter. So by subsidizing his production of their escape route, that might be helpful to everybody's chances of survival. The question is, how valuable is that? You know, what are they willing to give him for what he's done? And that's why it's kind of risky to have just taken that path right off the bat. Likewise, the diamonds, these aren't necessarily worth anything. If we don't survive, they're not worth anything at all, but they're stored points towards the end of the game. He's also got the eggs, which are a type of food that nobody else has. So that's kind of interesting. This guy's going to start collecting leisure for every turn that people do nothing, that people are still on the tracks. And other people are too, to just give them some extra victory points in their padding, which may influence some of the deals that are made. Neglected to hand out experience as people finish their paths. So now that everybody's at the market, and you can kind of see what they've collected, a lot of radio signal opportunities there. A number of people have a decent amount of leisure. He doesn't have any. Player 2. Set up a score sheet that I'm going to try to track the information so I don't use this sucker up. Now, I do have to pick my choices for experience. In particular, I get an automatic because nobody's going to roll any dice for any of these paths that they're on. So, for example, yellow can choose an experience in the Sandcraft. Let's look at him first. And my thinking here is a 6 is a bad number to start with, but it gets a good result. A 4 does not get a good starting result. So the reason you don't want 6s is you move through the path too quickly and you just end up with a pile of leisure. That's worth some victory points, but you want to produce some stuff. So if if I was most interested in extending my trip through the path, getting a 6 would be the first number I'd put as an experience number. But in this particular case, a 4 is not a terribly good number, yet that pushes me quite far along. I could drop that to a 3 or up it to a 5 if I take one experience in 4. So that's what I'm going to do with them. I'm not sure what everybody's going to do, but yellow's going to take Sand Crab, and he's going to take 4. And I'll figure out what everybody's experience is, and then go on with the rest of what's going on at the market. So I made my choices here. A couple on 4s because 4 was a particularly bad number for those, and a couple on 6s to prevent the extension. Now what you can see is clearly after you've traveled a path, you get better at that path. So you don't really want to come off of it unless the market doesn't support your path. Now, here's where government comes in handy. Without a government, there's no real reason for anybody to support this guy for having built all those radios. I got a pretty good chance that we're going to win with what he's already picked. So why should anybody help him? Well, they can, out of the desire to extend, but he has food and water. He's not going to die for the path that he took. In particular, let's look at what people do need. This guy, you cannot trade the radios and you cannot trade leisure. Those are just there. So this guy has a problem. He has 3 eggs and no water. He would gladly give an egg for a water and a banana. That doesn't seem like a fair trade in particular. And this guy's saying, look, I did something great for all of you. Give me an egg and a diamond, you know? Well, I didn't get as much stuff as you did. Yeah, you did actually. I only have 5 stuff. You only have 5 stuff. I could really use, the diamond as sort of the reward for having taken that route. Yeah, well, it's your fault you took it, isn't it? And these diamonds are victory points at the end of the game. Eggs are rare. Nobody has them. Water, you need 1. Yeah, but I'd like to store 1. And that's the kind of discussion we're going to see going on here. Now, what I'm going to do in my little simulation of it is to roll for one person and try to have him make a convincing argument to someone else for a trade instead of just jumping on this pair that I think actually deserves to have a trade. There's another pair that has interest in a trade, yellow and this pink. Well, he's pinker here. In either case, he's kind of salmon colored, actually. Because spears are very useful on his path. He made some choices that didn't get him a lot of fish. If he had a spear, he could get more fish. But the danger with spears, your military ability is decreased. If you start, this guy has a military advantage. He could pick on one person. But with 4 players, if he picks on one, the other 2 might join in and attack him and take all his stuff. Maybe even kill him. So there's kind of a, well, if he can get good trades, or fair trades, it should be worthwhile. Now, he absolutely needs water and he needs another food. Maybe he's got a deal that can come out of that. We'll see. And this brown guy here was able to convince him that an egg and a diamond were fair for a fish, for a water and a banana. So now he has enough food and water to survive, not necessarily enough to get any victory off of, as does this guy. And we swung over here. The next deal that was made was a spear for a water and a fish. A spear is really valuable for this guy. He's willing to make that trade, which ends up giving this guy enough to eat and drink. This guy's got enough to eat. Now comes the question of diversifying the possible food supply, is really what it comes down to. The only trade that I really see here being valuable would be I give you a fish and you give me an egg. I think that's just a mutually beneficial trade without any real inherent views in it. I can't see that being turned down, so I'm going to give it 2 shots. Yeah, you know, I'm not sure who's unhappy about it in particular. I think this guy is kind of unhappy that he's not going to get that extra water. He feels like he's getting boned out of something. By getting, basically I was rolling for an odd and I went with 2 dice. I don't think that trade's going to happen because of that. So we're going to move forward. Essentially, anytime somebody thinks they're done trading, and in this case, Brown is not seeing anybody who wants their banana enough to give them something. Salmon in particular has everything they need. They might be willing to make a good deal, like, hey, I'll give you a tomato in exchange for 2 things, for somebody who has 2 things. That would be this guy here. I can't see him doing that. Although it would diversify his food more, he's still only going to have 3 food, which is sort of the bare minimum. And he's also gets a bonus off of the extra water. I mean, that would be basically the thing is, but what 2 things would it be? Well, it would be a lack of diversification of food. So I don't think that's going to happen. So I think everybody's going to go back to the crash site. The order doesn't really matter. I just don't think that there's a trade in play other than that I'll give you a fish for an egg, which I've already decided isn't going to happen. So, at this point, someone could spend a leisure to invoke government. And invoking government doesn't give you the right to trade. It gives you the right to make speeches and to say, look, I don't think I got a fair deal here. Can you make other promises to me in the future? Can we rectify this somehow? And if there's no good answer to that, once government's been invoked, someone can then spend another leisure to invoke violence. Personally, I don't think anybody's in a position where they really feel that that's necessary. After we score, maybe people start feeling that they're getting the short end of the stick and want more. But right now, I just don't have the experience with that. So nobody's going to invoke a government. And what we're going to do is consume what we have. All right? What we desire to consume. So let's take the look at yellow first. He has 3 leisure. That's going to give him 3 victory points. I'll keep this running total here and not really worry about that. Now those automatically go away. Those have no chance of remaining. Does he want to drink 2 water for an extra victory point? Well, the path that I go down, the sand crab path, has a decent amount of water in it, but I would rather not run out. So I'm only going to drink one water and hold one in reserve for later. That gives me 0 extra victory points, but I'm not in any terrible shape there. And then for food, well, I want to eat. I have, 3 different types of food, or 3 different foods. I'm going to eat my 3 food. That gives me no penalty, but I have a -5 victory points for that. And in types, my different types is only 2, which if I'm malnourished, which I'm not, I'm getting both meat and vegetables. So I've got a balanced diet, so I get 2 more points for that. So I've broken even in victory points after eating my food. That's not optimal, but I have a spear, which makes me better at my path, and I have that water in reserve, which is worth a victory point, but I may be able, if there's a drought, to trade that at some point. Water doesn't spoil. Let's go to the next player. I should mark this down. I'm going to mark down any statuses here as well, but he's at 0 victory points right now. All right, let's take a look at the status here for this guy. Well, he has no leisure. He has 1 water, which gets him no bonuses, but no penalties. 3 food. Same kind of situation here. 3 food gets me, except they don't have the leisure bonus. Got to mix up the pronunciation always. That gives me a -5. And then 2 different types, and I'm not malnourished because I have a protein or an animal or whatever. So I get a +2 for that. And I'm going to be at -3 victory points for all that. I get nothing for all those radios I produced. I'm feeling kind of crappy about having produced them, to tell you the truth. So for turn 1 for Brown, he's at -3 points, but with no penalties on him. We're surviving. I do have the bonus of this diamond, though. That is the reward that I got for everything I did. I don't feel like that paid off what I was doing, and I'm not sure I want to go for the frequency. And the military is completely blanked out right now, so I may take a different path. I'm allowed to do so in this game. Some of them I'm not. Over here, I drink a water. That clears me. I have a leisure. That's worth 1 victory point. Oh, oops, no. This guy's at -3 more for not having any leisure at all, and you can't trade for that shit. So 1 leisure gets me 0. I hope I did it right with the first guy, but I don't really care too much if I get the score exact. So I'm good with the water. This guy, food, same situation everybody's been getting. 3 food gives me a -5, and 2 different types, but I'm with a balanced diet, so I get +2, so I'm at -3 for green. And I too have a gem available. So I don't know how much Brown can really complain, except he feels he did something very altruistic here. All right. 2 leisure for Salmon, which is worth 2 points. He drinks his water to survive. He has 3 food, which is again that -5. He's not really eating a lot here, but he's got 3 different types of food, and he's got the two different kinds, so he'll get a +3 for that. And that's it. got a spear, kind of his own choice that he got that. So he's going to end up also at 0. Now, at the end of the game, what are those gems worth? That's something interesting to find out. They're going to be worth 3 victory points each. So what you have to look at is players 2 and 3, brown and green, are 3 points ahead of where they are otherwise. Now brown does feel like he's getting a little shafted. Green feels like he's in with everyone else. Brown's probably not going to take the same path. And at this point, I believe we reshuffle. Oh, no, we got the possibility of the radio. So all the radio signals disappear. You can see why people wouldn't want to create these, right? And we want to see if people have been rescued. Now, with some of the governments in place, you would get a bonus for generating those radio signals. But otherwise, you kind of have to agree to do so. So what we're going to have is a top 40. Well, which one's that? That's the little music symbols. We have the most of those. Kind of don't want this to succeed as the brown guy because we're losing here. But in order to do so, what do? We roll a number of dice equal to the number of players. Yeah, we're going to roll 4 dice. Anybody who dies improves the chance of being found. And if this sum is less than or equal to the total number of markers of the right type. So basically, I need to roll 4 ones. And that doesn't happen. So we're not going to be found this turn. And that ends turn 1. Nobody has any special effects in play. And brown is feeling like he wants to take a different path. All right. Take these back, and I'll be reassigning these at random. But I want to take a break. Since that's one time through, I'm actually going to load this sucker up as is and come back as we continue on through the game. We haven't really seen where the deal making starts evolving, right? This guy got a little bit of recognition for all those radio signals, but maybe not as much as he expects, and not from everyone. You can make a trade and just altruistically give someone something for having done that. But if there's no agreement for that, well, it may be time to open up a government discussion. Could you discuss these things in the market? To some extent, but market deals are one-on-one deals. You can't work a multiplayer trade or something like that in this system. Once you get a market economy, things might change there. Well, once you get a market economy, you're actually dealing with the market and you're paying cash in and out. And that becomes a different type of game. All right, let's send this one off.